Hello, and welcome to our presentation on great data and great recruitment. I am Mark Prussian, CEO of Butchertown Clinical Trials, which is a division of the Eye Care Institute. Thank you for attending today. As a point of housekeeping, before we begin, our presentation will be 20 to 30 minutes. We are going to ask you to ask questions via the Q&A buttons, and any remaining questions that have not been answered during our webinar will be answered directly to you within 24 to 48 hours. We're going to have an agenda for today, which includes how our site was founded. We're going to talk about our new dedicated research building, which opened in the spring of 2021. We're going to talk about what sets us apart from other sites, including our 15 FDA approvals, and how we overcome recruitment challenges to make sure we are a top enrolling site using our searchable database. So additionally, I, Mark Prussian, will answer questions from the attendees. So here we go. First, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a board certified healthcare administrator, and I'm Chief Executive Officer of the Eye Care Institute and Butchertown Clinical Trials. I'm a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. My undergraduate degree is in business, and I hold an MBA as well. I have over 30 years of medical group practice administration experience, and that includes about a dozen years of clinical trials executive management experience. Also, a strong tie in working with physicians and relating with physicians, as well as the business of a medical practice, growing a medical practice, ensuring that there are sophisticated systems to allow us maximum delivery of excellent care. And during that time, I also helped build the clinical trials business, which we now call Butchertown Clinical Trials. I even wrote a book that is directed at patients on some of the most frequent eye care questions we get at our eye care practice. It's called One Eye or Two Insider Secrets to Help You Choose the Right LASIK Surgeon. It is not a medical textbook. It's directed at lay people, and it explains what to look for in a LASIK surgeon. It also gives you a glossary of eye care terminology. Reach out to me through LinkedIn and I can send you a copy, or with my compliments. They're also available on Amazon. So I hope you'll do that. All of which is to say I've been doing this a very long time, and I understand why data and recruitment are integral to the success of clinical trials. So we began the Eye Care Institute in 1984 in Louisville, Kentucky. It essentially was an organization that was in serious decline until about my arrival in 1999. It had a couple of physicians who both became ill with different conditions, and I sort of took it over and reinvigorated in 1999. We have then, about a dozen years later, got heavily into clinical trials. We became so successful and so experienced in it that we had 15 FDA approvals to date. We moved to a new location, which is on about 5.5 acres, and built a clinical trials building. So we now have 21,000 square feet of medical space. We call it Butchertown Clinical Trials. And the dedicated space has multiple exam rooms for our primary care service line, our vaccine service line, our nutritional clinical trials, our breathing and respiratory clinical trials, pulmonology, as well as our ophthalmology suite for our ophthalmic clinical trials. We also have a procedure room for other systems. We have many people on our clinical research staff who are independent of our medical practice. I am responsible for budgets and contracts as the founder, and I oversee financial operations as well. We have a clinical trial site director. We have a clinical research coordinator who is also our regulatory specialist. We have 2 other clinical research coordinators. We have a technician manager who manages everything primarily involving the assessments within each clinical trial. We also have more than 1 data entry specialist who do just that, enter the data that we hold with high quality. We have over really more than 30 years of working in clinical trials, including those in ophthalmology. A couple of clinical trials we're currently doing in artificial intelligence. That is really very exciting for us. We have done 2 trials in human genomics. We are working in endocrinology. We did a blood cancer oncology trial during COVID, during 2021, and we have worked on multiple medical device trials and are currently working on medical device trials now as we present this webinar to you today. This is an interior view of some of our space in our dedicated clinical trial center, which is separate from our medical campus. On the left, you see a photograph of our dedicated ophthalmology space. For those of you who are sponsors or CROs in ophthalmology, yes, we have multiple 4-meter ophthalmology lanes so that we're not doing clinical trials estimating 20/20 by using mirrors and screens, but we actually have more than 20-foot long exam rooms so that your measurements in question are never questioned because our exam rooms for eyes are 4 meters long. On the right side, you see our honor wall, which is actually now far more than that, of our FDA-approved drugs and devices with blank spaces for the future. We are now up to 15. But for each approved drug or device that we have worked on, they've got their own plaque on the wall for the lobby, for the people in the lobby to see. Our monitors often stop and look at that, as well as site visit sponsors and CROs. One of our keys to our success at Butchertown Clinical Trials is our data integrity. We are extremely proud that our data is valid, auditable, and accurate. Our site has never been issued any FDA findings. We had 1 FDA on-site visit and they issued us a clean letter. There were no findings. And that is a lot considering we have done over 350 trials in the last 15 years. And in the past 2 years alone, we've done 35 clinical trials, a couple surgical trials. Most of those were drug trials. Several of them were device trials, but we have a lot of activity going on at any given time. Our sponsor list includes, but is not limited to, Allergan, Alcon, Bausch & Lomb, sponsor or CRO, Aura, Oyster Point, Senju, Shire, National Eye Institute, Merck, Pfizer, and more, just to name a few. So we focus on data integrity. We realize that that's what sponsors need from us, and that's what CROs count on us for. Our data is accurate. We take clinical trials seriously. It is not a sideshow ancillary to what we do as a medical practice. We understand sponsors and CROs need data integrity in order to get their pharmaceuticals, therapeutics, biologics, devices, implants, and other items over the FDA finish line. We have 15 FDA approvals, which we are extremely proud of. They include sponsors from Allergan, Calab, Bausch & Lomb, Ivantis, Novartis, Aerie, Glaukos, Alcon, Ocular Therapeutics, Oyster Point, and more. We have more than 2 drugs nearing FDA approval status, and we have our national reputation as a superior, compliant, high-enrolling ophthalmic clinical trial site, and more. We have participated often in phase 4 or post-marketing trials with these sponsors, since they know the data that we send them is good, and when monitors come, they're always impressed, and we get the nicest compliments as well. So we're happy to participate in from phase 1, or actually from proof of concept. We've even done that a few times, especially with hyaluronic acid, which has become very popular for dermatologic issues in the last few years, all the way through phase 4 proof of post-marketing. We do that a lot as well. As all sponsors and CROs know, recruitment challenges are often the key to what hinders the success of an outstanding clinical trial protocol and the development and approval of an outstanding product. So we have multiple resources we use to ensure that we meet or exceed our recruitment goals. For the sponsors, and especially the CROs we work with most frequently, we are often asked to come back and clean up the recruitment and the rest of the data, to supply the rest of the data for the sites that were low enrolling sites. So we use several resources, including MDI IntelliChart, NextTech, and our CTMS clinical trial management software, which is real time. We have 78,000 active patients that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. They are key to our success as a high enrolling site. And we have a dedicated recruitment team, which includes a call center team. Also, we consider this vital to our success. For our primary source of recruitment, this is our key. Our medical practice that owns our clinical trial site uses NextTech with MDI, Intelisys, and their IntelliChart software as the electronic medical record system. Our medical practice has over 75,000 active or recent, within the last 3 years, patient visits. Each patient visit has discrete data points that help our sponsors and CROs to sort on the correct, best inclusion and exclusion criteria for each protocol. So let me say that again. We recruit for using 75,000 patients in our EMR system, and this lets us choose discrete data for each person that has been seen within the last 3 to 4 years. That is vital to our success. So for instance, if a sponsor is looking for a trial for males over 50 who don't use Flomax, for instance, our EMR system through NextTech and MDI Intelisys can sort on that. And we can come up with, because we have 78,000 total people, including 75,000 in our EMR system, we often come up with hundreds of people for every single inclusion and exclusion criteria. With 75,000 people in our EMR database, that essentially gives us the entire population. So sponsors and CROs, regardless of the condition, indication, illness, or injury you are looking to put to test in a clinical trial, we can help you find that. With 75,000 active patients, we have people who have every medication, have had every condition, every injury, every illness, every treatment. That is a small city, effectively, and that is available for us to sort with. So we use the cloud-based system of NextTech to use data analysis sorts to get us these. What we do next is we combine that with our real-time clinical trials management system. So we're using the cloud for NextTech, and we're using real-time. Real-time is an outstanding clinical trial management system that gives us all of the pieces to run a bona fide clinical trials center. Many other medical practices you work with, for which you may have PIs or physician or principal investigators will not have a clinical trial management software. To me, that says these other sites are dabbling in clinical trials. Our clinical trial management system allows us to take additional people who are not in our MDI NextTech CTMS and add them to another database that we have, which is our CTMS. So these are people who actively want to participate in clinical trials, and we're able to follow these people through the CTMS. The CTMS records all of their medical history, their medications, their personal and family social history, their clinical trials management with system participation with any other trials. It is a pay system to pay people, the subjects, for using pay cards or debit cards, gift cards. It is a text appointment reminder for patients. It has eSource and eReg and more. So we combine our EMR and our real time to go to a system where we now have 78,000 patients we can search between the 3,000 in real time and 75,000 in our EMR system. And what we do with them is we put them to a dedicated call team. So let's go back to the example with a male where a trial is looking to include a male over age 50 and exclude use of Flomax. So now we've come to 300 people who use that. And even though this may have no indication for eyes, because we are an eye care medical practice, all of our patients know because we repeatedly tell them through visual messaging in our facility, through our newsletters, through our marketing, through our Facebook and our other social media platforms like Instagram. We're telling them we may contact you for participation in another clinical trial. So our dedicated call team will then call, say you're the sponsor of that over 50 male trial, no Flomax, and they will say, hi, I'm calling from Dr. So-and-so's office, that's using their own doctor. Dr. So-and-so might have told you previously that we have a clinical trial center called Butchertown Clinical Trials. Dr. So-and-so would like to know if you are willing to be in a trial, say for type 2 diabetics, if that is the case. And let me tell you about it. And you can certainly ask me some questions. So our call center team are full-time employees of ours. They have hours that usually begin after 3 p.m. So they may call from 3 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. They work here in our facility, so it's not an out of state or out of country offshore call center. They actually know who they're talking to, what they're talking about. They can tell people what happens when they arrive because our call center team have been highly trained. All of our call center team have been here working on site for more than 3 years. So they're really telling them what the benefit of is to them in participating in a clinical trial and how they're helping improve human health and public health by participating in a clinical trial. I believe this to be a extraordinarily valid point of distinction that separates us from other clinical trial sites that you may choose. Having said that, we are going to be taking some questions and providing some answers. We already have questions coming in. Again, if your question is not answered at this time, we will get back to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. There's my picture. I am Mark Prussian again. I'm the CEO and founder of Butchertown Clinical Trials and the reinvigorator of the Eye Care Institute. And it says next to my name, budgets and contracts in clinical trials. That is my role. I work on all of our CTAs, CDAs, and through our budgeting process with our sponsors and our CROs. So I've got a question coming in now from a sponsor, and the message from the sponsor, it looks like it says, we have an upcoming trial in endocrine and diabetes. How will you help get compliant type 2 diabetics? And I assume the person who wrote this question means to participate in, to be a compliant subject in a clinical trial. So again, we would go through our database, and I happen to know that we have, in our particular situation, we have over 15,000 persons who have type 2 diabetes. We would take your inclusion and exclusion criteria, including your demographics for ages and whatever other demographics that are included in your inclusion and exclusion criteria. We would run them against both of our databases, our CTMS database and our EMR database. And then we would create a call list. And from that call list, our clinical trial site coordinator would meet with our 2 call center staff members and go over with them a script for calling, whether that's an IRB approved script specific to a trial, or whether it is a more generalized script that could be used to get people into any sort of trial for diabetes and endocrine, and show them how they can perhaps help themselves by either getting treatment at no cost or help provide information that will improve the care for others, either through blood samples or whatever if it's more of a sample trial, whatever else the trial protocol is looking for. And so that, in the short version, is how we help get paid subjects into those trials. I also have another question coming in, which looks like it's from a CRO. And that question is, how do you validate data? And the answer is that our regulatory specialist does spot checks on source data entry into our eSource system using a formula that we have developed internally for percentage of data entry that is validity checked against the eSource. And we do that depending on the length and time of the trial and the number of assessments and the number of visits. We have a system where a little bit more than 10% gets matched from eSource to paper source at that time. So that is our primary method for checking that. Then, of course, we welcome both virtual visits and in-person visits from monitors, and we provide all the support that monitors, sites, CROs, monitor sponsors, and CROs want, whether they're virtual monitoring or in-person monitoring. We give the sponsor exactly what they want. And finally, we have a question that I'm not sure who this is from. It says, can you talk a little bit more for how you recruit sites on behalf of a CRO? Here it is. It's from a CRO. How do you recruit subjects for trials? And there's one thing I'd like to go back and talk about in terms of our messaging system to our patients. For instance, our patients check into our medical practice via a kiosk system. One of the kiosk check-in questions are, would you like to participate in a clinical trial? And that is a really good example for a CRO on why you would want to choose us as a site compared to not choosing us as a site, because we use additional technology. In addition to things like text messaging, we're also using kiosks, questionnaires in person at check-in. We recently did that for a company that was working on a postoperative inflammation drug, and we got over 3,000 people who said they would be willing to participate in a postoperative inflammation drug trial, which, of course, not all of them ended up having surgery, but at kiosk, 3,000 people over the course of maybe 7 weeks said they would be willing to participate. So we think we do a great job with recruiting, with informing subjects, with data compliance, and with ensuring high data and quality enrollment. Here on our final slide is a look at our Clinical Trials Center, the top building. There is a map showing you overhead where our medical practice is compared to where our Clinical Trial Center is. The red dot is our medical practice. The grayish blue dot that says Butchertown Clinical Trials is showing our clinical trial site. Each are located on a same street, but they share a parking lot and a walkway between the two of them with about 1.75 acres of parking. So there's plenty of first floor level free parking. Butchertown Clinical Trials, you can contact us at info@butchertownclinicaltrials.com or by calling 502-219-7700. Thank you for listening to us today talk about Butchertown Clinical Trials and our success with being a high enrolling data compliance site. We are always here to talk to you and always happy to help you. I am Mark Prussian. Thank you for listening. Again, we will reach out to you with the rest of the questions that are now coming in. Thank you so much.